Welcome to Sunset News on this Tuesday evening. As always, we bring you the news, community stories, economics, weather, and sports. I am Ashwin Betty.
And I'm Esther Kamati.
Thank you for joining us, Esther.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you, as happy as I am to have you here. Let's get straight into the news tonight. Stock theft continues to be a matter of serious concern, particularly in the Zambezi region, with major economic damages to livestock farmers. Gender Equality and Social Welfare Minister Doreen Siyoka said this in her contribution on the motion of the level and impact of stock theft in communities and the impact of current legislative framework to combat stock theft. Siyoka said that farmers who reside alongside the adjacent Namibia-Zambezi border came up with the idea of forming the Anti-Stock Theft Association due to the regular increase in the number of cross-border stock theft to assist the police in curbing this crime. Now, since the formation of the association, there have been a significant increase in recoveries of stock theft, both in Zambia and locally in the Zambezi region, alongside the borderline from Katima Mulilo to Singalamwe Kamenga. All right, so this seems like a good initiative for farmers and the community in order to join their efforts to curb these crimes. You know, it's always good to see citizens take a step in the right directions, but should it be their responsibility?
I feel like at the end of the day, everybody does what they can from where they are, and seeing that farmers are most affected, it only makes sense that they take the initiative, since obviously law enforcement is not doing as much as is needed. As is needed. So it's great to see the community come together and hold hands, and especially considering the minister coming through and recognizing the union. I think that kind of legitimizes it and gives it that sort of backing that it needs.
Absolutely, essentially filling the gap. And then of course what you hope for is that when the minister shows up, they take the mantle and then they run the rest of the race, so the farmers don't have to be responsible for all of it. In our next story, one man died in his shack as dozens of houses burned down last night at Ausen Care. About 100 families have been left without homes after 3 hours of raging fire. Lack of tap water has contributed to the spreading of the fire, a resident told Namibian Sun. Spray tanks from grape company Silverlands helped fire down the end. Now, could the damage caused by this fire have been prevented?
Ashwin, this is a particularly sad story, considering that obviously there's like heavy rains happening in Namibia, and just now over 100 rather families have to sleep Lord knows where outside. And obviously this could have been prevented, because it says in the story that the fire spread because there was a lack of water facilities. So if there was indeed water, then the community would have done what they could in the absence of you know, fire brigade.
That's true. You
for
know,
instance.
I look at certain countries which have started introducing punitive measures for ministers or people who are responsible for securing a certain area whenever there's a natural disaster. Do you think something like that could work in Namibia if cabinet were to put a motion that if a natural disaster comes and you've been given the funds to have been able to, you know, to to mitigate such mitigate a response that is efficient enough, and you don't manage to do so, you get punished, perhaps maybe even some jail time?
Certainly that would be a great initiative, but we saw it was in the newspapers somewhere last week that there was indeed funds allocated to disaster management, but it didn't land in the appropriate places. So I think it's also great. Earlier on, just before we went live on this show, I was reading up on, or following up rather, on the story, and it seems like the local community is actually assisting. There's a grape farmer or business person in the area who's who's currently sourcing funds to give food packages to these people and assist them in building up structures that they can use in the meantime.
Yet again, community members filling the gap, which of course leaves more questions and answers about the government. Now, in our breaking news post, Urban and Rural Development Minister Erastus Uthoni last week handed over 70 houses built by the National Housing Enterprise to the owners at Okahao in Omusati region. Uthoni started at Umutia, where he handed over 50 houses and then 24 houses for Ondangwa. He applauded the Okahao Town Council, saying it is one of the local authorities which do not hesitate to avail land for housing. I've witnessed in the past that you have to avail land to the Shack Dwellers Federation, again, that that you have availed land rather. I've seen that you're planning for the Build Together program, and today we are here yet for the housing development of NHE, Utoni said. He added that this is the only way they can cater for different income groups of the residents of Okahao town. Esther, what are your thoughts on government's efforts in addressing the country's housing needs?
I think the NHE is doing relatively well. I mean, this isn't their first handover of houses. I think just last week they handed over houses, and now they're continuing their efforts. And I think that's great. I mean, for the first time this year, a family is going to sleep in an up to standard brick house. They're going to spend Christmas there for the first time, and I think these are great initiatives to see, because it's one thing for us to hear that money has been allocated, but it's another thing for us to actually see the handover of these houses and these families moving into these houses. And I think it's also great that the Rural and Urban Minister called out the local authorities, because we're so quick to say NHE is not delivering the houses, but in order for a house to be built, land needs to be allocated, and that is the work of the town council. So they should certainly continue with that initiative.
Yes, without a doubt. And Namibia does have a significant housing crisis. You know, certainly, a lot of shack dwellers, so to speak, would be hoping to have a Christmas much like this family. And we certainly hope that those good deeds and, of course, the efficiency from the local council can transpire into those houses being built. Now, in our other breaking news post, the mayor of Walvis Bay says that as a result of the fish rot corruption scandal, people looking to become fishermen no longer move to the harbour town for a better life, but to suffer instead. Forbes made these remarks at a public meeting hosted by the Institute for Public Policy Research. The meeting was aimed at discussing the impact of the fish rot corruption scandal on the local community.
To the content, So I listened to the content and what we are trying to achieve through this engagement. And I believe that once we embark on such a task, such a mission, we need to start at home. Because everything that happens at home. We put trust in people, that we break our trust. And yet, we continue on this road. Some of these gentlemen sitting in the audience today have been at our office. We are now looking at industry that was so rich, and now the people working in that industry, has been so affected to the point that they have become, allow me to say this, beggars. I'm very sorry to use the word, but that is what we as Walvis Bay has been reduced to. Where we are sitting, it's called the Namsov Center. We are here at the Namsov building. And just now I came from Renis, the area where Namsov is. And Namsov no longer exists. It's no longer there. Namsov had one of the biggest community trusts in the country, that reached out to all over the country, all regions, was reached by this community trust, looking after the needs of some of our people in different regions. It's no longer there. Because of fish rot. Last week, a week ago, I was at the industry address with the Minister of Fisheries, downplayed the effects of fish rot. And this was really a disappointment to me. So I think that first of all, we need to take responsibility, we need to take accountability of our actions locally. When you are a child and you do something wrong, you break the neighbor's window or whatever, it is your parents, the one that is responsible for you, that must go out to your neighbors and apologize for what you have done. Which means your parent must take accountability and responsibility for the actions of their child. And this has not been the case here in Namibia. Accountability and responsibility must first be taken by our government for what has happened to you in Walvis Bay. The fishing industry was the industry that brought life to this community of Walvis Bay. All other businesses stem from the fishing industry in our harbour. So it is unfair that we can just move on from what happens. And we are showing Samari, we are saying we want to keep Samari, the parent company, accountable. But who's keeping our parent accountable? What they have done is unacceptable, and they need to ask the Namibian people for forgiveness for what they have done. As you are sitting here, you have lost jobs. Some of our brothers have lost their lives, livelihoods. Fishermen, that used to be the sector when you come to Walvis Bay, everybody wants to become a fisherman. that need, that passion is no longer there.
It's pretty clear that fish rot continues to affect people in the fisheries space. What do you make of these remarks?
I think that was an honest conversation that the mayor was having with the people, because we always treat fish rot as something that happened in isolation.
Like a one-time incident.
Exactly. So it's definitely important and very relevant for him to point to the fact that there were a lot of people affected. There are people who lost employment, and there are people who just generally lost trust in fisheries as a career, and that it's not seen the same anymore. And this obviously reflects on the reputation of not only the fishery space, but on Walvis Bay as a business location.
Yes, and of course, you know, fishermen and fisherwomen are the bedrock of the fishing industry. It starts with them and then it goes from there. And a lot of them saw, some of them in their own community, who were reported to have committed suicide as a result of the domino effects of the fish rot case. And for some people, it just seems like it's too insecure a space for them to be able to do business. Of course, that's another task for the government, because it's no longer just fish that you have to manage around there. Green hydrogen is coming through, and of course the Shell oil discovery. And the last thing you want is to have a workforce that does not trust the industry. Now, those have been our top stories, but in economic news, the Namibia Institute of Professional Accountants has been admitted as a member of the International Federation of Accountants. More on this after the break.
We are so excited to be kickstarting your morning with entertainment.
Everything was happening during this past weekend.
Yes.
Exciting news.
Wow, no, she was killing it already.
In my opinion, I don't see anything wrong with him serving the full term.
As well as keeping you informed on the issues that you need to know happening in and around our country.
You're still with Ashwin Berry and Esther Kamati on Sunset News. Let's get into our economic news story. The Namibia Institute of Professional Accountants has been admitted as a member of the esteemed International Federation of Accountants in Vienna, Austria. Feni Ngikavali, the Chief Executive Officer at the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Namibia, delivered remarks at the celebratory ceremony in Windhoek.
We are able to achieve and comply with these aspects. So as the local sponsor, one of the requirements was for NEPA to have a local sponsor, which is ICANN. Because ICANN is already a member of IFAC, we really walked the journey with NEPA, and we have really seen the effort that NEPA has put into achieving this milestone. So without repeating, I think the earlier speaker, Franz, has already said so much about the importance of IFAC in the accounting profession, and I don't really want to repeat that, but I just want to make it clear that the influence of IFAC extends far beyond borders. So Namibia is just one small aspect of it, and it is really a beacon for accounting standards and practices, and we as Namibian firms and individuals, we need to make sure that we really adhere to these accounting standards and practices. Briefly also is the aspect, and it was also touched on professional development, and IFAC really provides these resources in order for the accounting profession to remain relevant. We need to continuously upskill, reskill, continuously educate ourselves so that we can be resilient in this very dynamic profession called accounting. And then ethics, which is also a very key aspect, ethics for the accounting profession, for NEPA, for ICANN, for any other professional accountancy organization, is really one of the core elements of the profession. It is almost ingrained in our DNA, and it is up to us as the profession to live up to the ethical standards. So again, just to stick within the 5 minutes, congratulations NEPA. Your achievement not only elevates NEPA, but it also positively reflects on the entire accounting profession, and not only NEPA, but to each and every member of NEPA that is going to benefit from this IFAC membership. Congratulations as well. And your dedication.
It's always good to see a local body acknowledged internationally. Let's head into the indicators. The Namibian dollar trades at 18.74 next to the US dollar. 20.55 Namibian dollars gets you €1, with 2.62 getting you 1 Chinese yuan and 23.65 getting you a British pound. Looking at commodities, everyone is in the green. Copper with the highest uptick, plus 1.03%, followed by platinum, gold, and Brent crude oil, respectively. All right, now in international news, 6 teenagers have gone on trial in Paris for their alleged roles in the murder of a teacher. Stay with Sunset News.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
All right, 6 teenagers have gone on trial in Paris for their alleged roles in the murder of a teacher, Samuel Paty. The children are accused of slander and pointing out Paty to his killer, a Chechen refugee at the school. They were aged between 13 and 15 at the time of the killing in 2020. Paty was stabbed and beheaded on 16 October 2020 after reportedly showing students cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad during a class on freedom of expression. The youngest suspect was 13 years old at the time of the killing. She was suspended from school 9 days before Paty's murder for reasons unrelated to the case. She is alleged to have untruthfully told her father that she had been disciplined for having confronted Paty over an alleged request for Muslim students to leave the class. She had in fact been absent from the class in question. Nonetheless, her father posted videos on social media calling for Paty to be fired. Prosecutors believe these videos prompted Chechen Abdullah Anzorov to travel around 80 kilometers from Normandy to Conflans Saint-Honorine near Paris to commit the murder. Anzorov, 18 years old at the time, was shot dead by police at the scene. The other 5 suspects in the case are alleged to have helped Anzorov identify Mr. Paty at the school in exchange for £260 payment. One said Anzorov told him that he wanted to film Mr. Paty apologizing for showing caricatures of Prophet Muhammad. A truly saddening and indeed disturbing development. Esther, any thoughts?
From the young girl, the teenage girl who told her father what was supposed to be this little white lie, and eventually for it to develop in somebody's killing. I feel that people should just be more mindful of the information that they put out there, because you never really know. And I feel like the teacher also, in terms of religion, is a very sensitive topic, and we shouldn't just treat it as any ordinary topic, because people take it very seriously. And I think this was, in essence, what the issue was.
Especially when incidents of religious extremism have been rising lately. Let's move on. New Zealand's new government says it plans to scrap the nation's world-leading smoking ban to fund tax cuts. The legislation introduced under the previous Jacinda Ardern-led government would have banned cigarette sales next year to anyone born after 2008. Smoking is the leading cause of preventable deaths in New Zealand, and the policy had aimed to stop young generations from picking up the habit. Health experts have strongly criticized the sudden reversal. The legislation passed last year had been acclaimed internationally, with research models backing the key reforms. Measures included restricting the number of tobacco retailers and reducing the level of nicotine in cigarettes. Modeling had suggested the smoke-free laws could save up to 5,000 lives each year. Do you have any thoughts on this, Esther? You know, something that comes to mind for me immediately is just the amount of power tobacco corporations have, particularly when it comes to influencing governments, because, you know, they do have a lot of money to spend.
That is true. And I think that basically was the driving force behind them choosing to reverse the initial decision. But also on the other hand, this kind of shows us that they prioritized the income more than they do the health of their people.
Yes.
So I'm not sure. That one is a bit tricky.
Do you think a smoking ban could work in Namibia?
In Namibia, I mean, considering this particular story, they were going to ban the sale of cigarettes to people born after 2008. I think that could work. And in terms of reducing the level of nicotine available in cigarettes, I think those are very key pointers to this particular decision. In Namibia, it could work the same way, but an overall ban, I don't think.
Yeah, that might not be actually feasible. All right, stay with us as we head straight into the weather predictions.
Take a load off and tune into another episode of Brave Namibia as we take a look at both ordinary and extraordinary Namibians. Brave Namibia is broadcasted on NTV Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and 1up2.com, as well as broadcasted on the following Facebook platforms on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Republican, Allgemeine Zeitung, Namibian Sun, and all Namibia Media Holdings pages. For more information, contact the Brave team at brave@synergy.com.na.
There have been some very consistent showers in Windhoek, at least for the last week. Let's figure out what the rest of the weather predictions say. Windhoek, like I said, there are some rains there, minimum of 22 degrees Celsius expected. Enana, Oshakati also expecting rains, but in Katima, Rundu and Ruakana, cloudy conditions expected. Looking at the coast, Henties Bay and Walvish Bay are sunny, along with Lüderitz and Oranienmund. Swakopmund is partly cloudy, and Mariento can expect rains at a maximum of 35 degrees Celsius. Let's head straight into the sports stories with Jesse.
Good evening and welcome, that is to the Sunset News Sports section. I am Jesse Jackson Kauraifa. In the coastal town of Swakopmund, a team of determined individuals are gearing up for a challenge that stretches well beyond the typical test of endurance, the annual Nedbank Desert Dash. These are the members representing the Blush Foundation team, a group of social cyclists united by their zeal for cycling by a cause, the eradication of period poverty in Namibia. On to the next news. The Richley Eagles today made another history, that is by qualifying to the T20 World Cup after beating, that is, Tanzania in a pulsating match. It has been Namibia's dream to qualify to this tournament, and they have done it in style again. And on to the next one. Another exciting edition of the FNB Sandman Triathlon will take place at the Mola in Swakopmund on 3rd December. The event is made possible by FNB, who has taken the role of title sponsor for the last 16 years. The fact that there were only about 80 entries about 4 years ago and close to 350 participants in 2022 is pleasing. It's a pleasing aspect to the sponsors. Organizers introduced different competitions and categories, which made it possible for more people to enter. That brings us to the end of tonight's sports news. Good night.
All right, and in the last of our stories, Miss Earth Namibia 2023 Martha Kautane Valley left the country yesterday to represent Namibia at the 23rd Miss Earth pageant scheduled for Friday 22 December at the Saigon Exhibition and Convention Center in Ho Chi Minh City. Departing with a profound purpose, Kautane Valley's journey transcends the glitz of the pageant world, resonating with a heartfelt dedication to the children of Namibian centers for orphans and vulnerable children. Her departure wasn't just a transition to a global stage, it was a heartfelt promise of support and advocacy for the marginalized. With her unwavering dedication and empathy, Kautane Valley exemplifies beauty with a genuine commitment to championing the cause of the underprivileged on the esteemed platform of Miss Earth. We certainly wish her all the best. Thank you very much, Esther, for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No, I mean, I felt like you were going to say thank you for joining us because we did this thing together. All right, that's been Sunset News. That's the end of our broadcast. Don't end your day without us.